Do you have trouble mixing your own skin tones with acrylics when you paint people? Well, if you feel like your skin tones are coming out flat and are lacking warmth and depth, these tips are for you. For all the best lessons on painting with vibrant color with acrylics, be sure to subscribe to my channel and ring the bell so you don't miss a thing. Okay, so most of my paintings revolve around food, but occasionally I do like to paint portraits of people sitting around the table enjoying their favorite foods, so I have gotten to practice my skin tone mixing quite a bit. So there are lots of different ways to mix skin tones, but I'm going to show you the way that I do it every single time because it's going to make it a lot easier for you. And with my method, you only need a couple tubes of paint, and with those same 4 or 5 tubes of paint, you can mix every shade of skin from very light to very dark and every shade in between. So let's dive in.
All right, so we are diving into an intro into how to paint skin tones. So before I start, I just want to say this is my method for painting skin tones. This is the way that I like to do it, and I've done it for a long time. There are obviously as many ways to paint skin tones as there are skin tones in the world, which is to say a lot. So this is just the way I like to do it. And what I want to do is just break down an intro. I want to show you how to approach and how to think about skin tones and how to approach a skin tone depending on how light or dark it is, because you do need to take a different approach depending on what kind of skin tone you are painting. So what we're going to do first is I want to explain one thing, and that is skin tones are all warm. Yes, some people have yellow undertones, red undertones, green undertones. Not really going to talk about that today. I'm just going to talk about keeping your palette warm. I'm starting with magenta, orange, yellow medium, yellow light. If you've watched enough of my videos, you'll notice that I use these colors repeatedly. You can use these to do a ton of different things. I use a relatively limited palette. I just like to do that for a variety of reasons, but you want to start with warm colors, and then we've got dioxazine purple in here to be our neutralizer. When you are painting skin tones, no one has saturated orange skin or saturated yellow skin, right? We've got neutralized skin tones that are different shades of brown, different shades of kind of orange or peachy colors. We're just going to keep that in mind as we go. So another thing you're going to see over here is my little reference board here. Pinterest is a really great tool for collecting photos. If you are practicing painting skin tones, I highly, highly recommend that you create your own Pinterest board, that is skin tones. So what I have here are a couple of references of makeup shades. That's actually a great way to just get some graphics where you can see all sorts of different skin tones. Of course, you want to make sure that you've got a variety when you're practicing from light all the way to dark. So this is just a good graphic to practice with. Couple more makeup shades, but I also have saved some paintings that I love that show all different skin tones, from dark like this to lighter like this, and different skin tones in between, something like this or like this. So you definitely want to create a board, get some reference photos so that you can practice. But what I'm going to do today is I'm going to introduce you, like I said, to just a 101 basic version of how to go about painting skin tones. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to paint kind of a middle brown skin tone. So we can start with something that's more like middle of the spectrum. So maybe something like this beautiful painting is a perfect reference photo. So I'm not really going to be using these to copy off of. I'm just demonstrating, showing you an example of the type of color that I'm going to be mixing. So you want to start with warm colors, right? We want to start with maybe some yellow for a middle brown skin tone. Add some orange. You might want to warm it up with a little bit of magenta. But that's really orange, right? It's kind of a saturated shade of orange. What you're going to want to do is add a tiny little bit of purple. It's almost like they're not quite complementary colors, but we're neutralizing these warm colors, especially the yellow, neutralizing it with its complement, which is purple. So you can see we're getting a much deeper, richer brown. So that could be one variation, of course. If you needed to make it lighter, instead of adding white, white desaturates, you're going to want to add a little bit of yellow, right? So you could add a little bit of white if you wanted to lighten this up, get a lighter skin tone. What you're going to see me doing all the way across is neutralizing my warm colors and then adjusting. So let's say we wanted to make this even lighter. It's getting a little bit too yellowy, doesn't really feel like the color we need. Most of the time when you're trying to correct any skin tone, adding some magenta or a little bit of pink is going to help you get it back feeling more neutral and more skin tone like. So now we're getting into something lighter. So just those first couple examples of going into painting some darker medium brown skin tones. Now, if you wanted to, let's say, paint lighter skin tones, maybe something like this. Beautiful painting. We're going for lighter pale pinks, right? Lighter corals, peachy pale pinks. So what you might do is, I personally like to start with a little bit of yellow. I'm going to start similarly to how we did before. Maybe a little bit of orange, a little bit of pink, maybe even a little bit more pink. And we're obviously going to bring in some white. We need to lighten it up and desaturate. And from here, we can adjust. That's really the key lesson, right? This is kind of has some more orange undertones. We can lighten it up a little bit, and we can add even a little bit of pink there. The key is to adjust. I say this all the time. Painting is like cooking. All of my work relates to food, which is why I say this, but painting is like cooking, right? If you have a little too much yellow, okay, maybe we need to add a little bit of magenta. If we have a little too much orange, we need to add a little bit of yellow. Like cooking, what I mean is like when you're cooking, there's a little too much salt, okay, add a little bit of sugar. Too much sugar, okay, add a little bit of acid or lemon. It's not one recipe for exactly how to paint each of these skin tones or exactly how to paint each of these things. It's understanding the concept of taking warm colors, desaturating them with purple, or excuse me, neutralizing them with purple, and then lightening them if needed with white. And from there, you can adjust accordingly, right? Like let's say we were painting a portrait of someone who did have some yellow undertones in their skin. When you start looking into makeup, you'll see all sorts of pink undertone, yellow undertone. You could add a touch of yellow, and that would create a different shade, right? So you can see these are 3 different lighter skin tones. We got them from the same colors that we got our medium skin tones, right? So now I want to introduce you to painting darker skin tones. So the important thing to remember with darker skin tones is you want to start darker with really rich, beautiful dark colors, and then lighten up as needed with yellows and oranges. If you add white, you're going to see too much of the purple. So here's what we're going to do. Let's say you wanted to paint a portrait of someone with much darker skin. Let's pull this one up because there's some good shadows here too. So let's say you want to mix some rich, deep browns. So what you would do is, I like to start with orange and purple. Orange, pyrrole orange and dioxazine purple together mix beautiful, really rich, dark browns. And if you wanted to go darker, you could add some more purple. You could go as dark as you want. You don't want to use just purple, obviously, because A, nobody has purple skin, but B, you want to make sure you maintain warmth. Even in the darkest skin tones, there is visible warmth. So you want to make sure you add that with orange. You could even add a little bit of magenta for some rosiness. And then let's say this is too dark for the portrait that you're painting and you need to lighten it up. So you could start by lightening it up with orange, keeping it nice and rich and warm. But you could also lighten up with yellow, which just brings a different warmth and creates a slightly different shade of brown skin. Keeping it nice and warm. And again, you'd want to use orange and yellow to lighten up into some lighter shades of brown. But there are just a few examples. I wanted to cover the whole range of skin tones, but of course these also are just little pockets of all the skin tones that are in the world. But this is the first kind of basic lesson as to how to approach them. So I hope that this inspired you to go paint some portraits of your own. Again, go create a Pinterest board, save photos of makeup, different faces, and practice mixing these colors. So maybe even let's do a couple more. So let's zoom in so we get a few different skin types. Okay, let's say we want to start with this color that they're calling caramel. Remember, this is a makeup photo. So what I would do is I'm noticing some oranges and yellows. So I might start with some yellows, some oranges, and I might add a touch of purple. Blue is also a complementary color to orange. You could add a touch of blue. I find purple works better for me. And then we can add some white. But that's a little too light and it's a little too yellow, right? So what we can do, just want to put this right next to the skin tone we were painting. It needs some warmth, right? So we need a little bit of magenta. And it could also use a touch of orange, right? This is like the painting is like cooking. It's just back and forth. What do we need? What do we see? And while this isn't exactly a match, it's getting pretty close to the appropriate amount of warmth. You could neutralize a little bit more with some purple. And then of course, depending on how the light is hitting someone's face, it's gonna be lighter and darker in some areas. So let's say we lighten it up just over here, like if we were doing the highlights on her nose. That's how you would match that color. Is it exact? No, but it's pretty close, and that's exactly how I approach it. So let's do one more. And maybe we can do this shade down here, which is called hazelnut in this photo. Right here, this middle one right here. So, okay, we know we want to start darker. So we're going to take some orange and a little bit of purple to neutralize. Maybe add a tiny bit of yellow. You'll see I'm mixing really slowly. I'll take just a touch and add it. Maybe a little bit more purple. And I'm seeing that it does have a little bit of lightness to it, this particular skin tone. So maybe I'll add a touch, a tiny, tiny touch of white. Adjust with orange, maybe even a little bit of a cooler yellow. Maybe a little bit more purple. You just want to get used to looking very, very closely and carefully. So it's a little too red. What can we do? We can add a little bit of purple. You want to get really good at looking and seeing, okay, what color is going to take me in which direction? We just added more purple, so I'm adding yellow so that we can neutralize it, move more towards the rich brown that we're going for. And now we're moving in that direction by mixing really slowly. And of course, when you're painting a portrait, it's not like makeup, right? Where you just have this one color out of the bottle and you just put it on your face. You're painting the skin tones by the way they're hitting, by the way the light's hitting them, right? You're gonna do highlights and shadows, but this is just an intro into that. So maybe even a touch of white, a touch of purple. Okay, and that's much closer to the skin tone that we see in this photo. So this is just an intro to skin tones. Practice your own, create your own skin tone boards. Remember, starting with warmer colors, neutralizing with purple, lightening as needed, but very, very slowly, depending on what shade you're going for. So I hope you had a good introduction to skin tones in this video.
All right, so now I want to hear from you. So let me know in a comment if you have had trouble getting enough warmth and depth in your skin tones. And if you're wondering what other paint colors and other materials I use to get such vibrant colors in my paintings, be sure to download my quick start guide to acrylic painting. That is available for you right below this video. And if you liked this video, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and share it with your color-loving painting friends. And be sure to check out these other color mixing tutorials right here, and I will see you in the next video.